1,826 days of eating absolute shit. That has been my reality for the last 5 years. For the last half a decade, I've been putting in the work day in and day out, feeling like I'm moving mountains, only to look up and realize that I've barely even moved an inch. Right, and I say that not just to say that, but I say that because I know what it feels like to have big, audacious goals and feel me achieving that goal. I can where I see it in my head, where I see it in my vision, and I can taste it, I can feel it, and things happen in your life where you say to yourself, "Man, if only I was already at my goal, this would be way different. This would be way easier. The experience I'd be going through would be magnitudes different. I could do this, I could do that, I could do the other." And the reality is that no matter how you put it, being patient is fucking hard. This is something that I'm honestly very, very passionate about because nobody talks about this, right? Everyone is always talking about how you can get to XYZ goal, how you can achieve X outcome and do this and that and the other. And, to be fair, I do that myself, but no one actually talks about the reality of what it actually takes to get to your goal, of what it actually takes to win, to go from where you are right now to where you want to be. And no one talks about the middle part, right? When you're actually in the trenches, doing what you need to do and not moving fast enough or not feel like you're moving fast enough. That's why in today's video, I'm going to be pulling back the curtain and going over what I have learned in the last 5 years on how to actually be patient while still collapsing timelines forward and moving a lot faster than most people do by accelerating results. Now, before I actually get into all of the tactical stuff, I want to go ahead and drive the point that success, no matter how big, no matter what your goal is, even if it's a business goal or if it's another kind of goal, if it doesn't have to be monetary, but any kind of goal, a big goal especially, takes time. There's just no other way around it. Time just takes time. But time and being patient is what is required for you to bridge that gap from where you are right now to where you want to be. And time and patience is what is required for you to achieve compounding effects and achieve outsized returns. That's what is required, right? And that's the reality of it. Warren Buffett once said that you can't produce a baby in 1 month if you go and get 9 women pregnant. Okay, you can be that guy. You can get as much women as you want pregnant in one time. But the reality is it's still going to take 9 months to produce a baby, no matter how you put it, right? And I just wish I would have accepted that a lot sooner because I would have made a lot better decisions in my business, in my life. And honestly, the real, I would be a lot closer to my goal than what I am right now if I would have accepted this a lot sooner. And that is that it's probably going to be a lot harder than what I initially thought it was going to be. And it's definitely going to take a lot more time than what you initially expected to be. And that is reality. Okay, the sooner that you can accept that, the sooner that you can actually get into the arena and start playing the game. Because at least for me, my goal is not just to win, right? Obviously, I'm here to win. I'm here to play. I'm here to win. But my goal is not just to win. My goal is to continue to win and continue to play the game, right? I'm in this for the long run. I've said this in other videos as well, but that is something that I wish I would have accepted a lot sooner. And I'm saying that to tell you that, hey, this is probably something that you need to look at and that is actually very, very important. Okay? And I mean, besides, that's where all the money is made, right? Again, to quote Warren Buffett or even talk about Warren Buffett, here's actually something that is very, very crazy that I didn't know about this, but I'm reading a book right now called The Psychology of Money. And this is actually an insane stat. So Warren Buffett, he made $81.5 billion in about a few years, right? This was about once he turned 60, I think it was when he turned 65, he made $81.5 billion. Do you want to know what his total net worth was at that time? $84.5 billion. So that means that Warren Buffett, he's been seriously investing since he was 10 years old, by the way. But Warren Buffett, been investing since 10 years old, at the age of 65, made 99.9% of his total net worth within a few years. So from the age of 10 to 63, he'd only made 3 point something billion. He turned 65, 84.5 billion. That is the power of compounding effects, right? And that is why playing the long game and being patient is so important. That is why it pays to keep playing the game and to keep persisting and to keep going and to stay consistent and do that over a long enough period of time so that you can get compounding effects. Maybe you're not Warren Buffett. Maybe you can't achieve something that big, but at least you can achieve something, right? And what I can guarantee you is that no matter what it is, if you do it for a long enough period of time, you're going to get damn good at it. So that is why it is so important to play the long game and actually be patient, right? And the thing is that long tails like that, compounding effects, it's so counterintuitive. Like our brain is not actually designed to comprehend that, right? It's not designed to comprehend things like Warren Buffett making $84.5 billion, which is 99.9% of his total net worth within a few years when he's been investing for over 60 years. Like our brain is not designed to understand that. And that is why this is often the most overlooked thing in any business, or the one thing that most entrepreneurs overlook the most is the power of compound interest. And because of that, most entrepreneurs expect results tomorrow. They give up too soon. And they miss the compounding effect that only shows up after you've been patient long enough to actually realize those returns. But here is the paradox, and this is the way I actually like to look at it, is that in the bigger picture, I accept how long it's going to take. But in the micro level, on a day-to-day basis, I move with relentless urgency. If someone on my team comes up to me and says, hey, this project is going to take 3 months, I immediately rebound with, okay, cool. What's it going to take to get it done this month? And then we figure it out and get it done, right? And it is this dance, this nuance of in the macro being patient and accepting whatever it takes, and in the micro moving with such urgency that I feel is honestly the key to actually pulling timelines forward and getting to your goal a lot faster while still being patient. And so there's 3 main principles that I want to go over in today's video. And that is, number 1 is you want to get clear on your goal. And you want to know exactly what you want and why you want it. And number 2 is to, figure out what is getting in the way of your goals. And to be fair, there's going to be a lot of things that's going to get in the way of you achieving your goals. But the point with this phase with this principle is to identify the one thing that, if solved, is going to make everything else irrelevant or a lot more easier. And that is what I like to call the constraint in your business. And the third thing is going to be in structuring your day to multiply inputs and multiply outputs. All right, so there's a day-to-day cadence, there's a day-to-day structure that I like to follow that makes everything else a lot easier, that allows me to move a lot faster than most people do. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So the first thing is that specificity matters, because if you don't know exactly what you're aiming for, you're just going to waste your energy. You're just going to waste your time. You're just going to waste your patience, right? Because it doesn't matter how you could be the most patient person in the world, but if you don't actually know where you're going, what good is that going to do? You're just going to be wasting all that energy, right? It's kind of like opening up Google Maps and asking it to just take you somewhere. It seems pretty absurd, right? But the reality is a lot of entrepreneurs, and myself included, I used to think like this, live like that on a day-to-day basis. And that's why, hey, yeah, you ask Google Maps, take me somewhere. Guess what? It's going to take you somewhere, but I guarantee you that it's not going to be where you actually wanted to end up. And so that is why specificity matters. And I'll tell you a little story about when I first learned this. So I used to work in sales. I used to work in high-ticket sales. I worked for Jeremy Miner. I worked for Matt Ryder. at Sales Sniper. And one thing that I learned while I was there was being very, very clear on what it is that you wanted and why you wanted it, right? This is actually an exercise that you got onboarded with working with Matt Ryder. And that was, I think it was called, it was like a worksheet. I think it was called like Ideal Lifestyle or something like that. But what you did was essentially you broke down exactly what your goal was to a specific number. So let's say, for example, for me, that meant I want to make 300K per month, right? That's the specific number. And actually backtrack before that, you would actually, before deciding the number, you would actually decide what you wanted, like what you want your life to be. Like what kind of lifestyle do I want to live? Like where do I want to live? Do I want to live in this city or that city? And then you would choose, okay, so I want to live in this city. Okay, cool. What area of the city do you want to live in? Okay, perfect. I want to live in this area. Okay, great. Where do you want to live? What house? What specific house do you want to live in? Okay, great. I want to live in this specific house. Why that house? Why not the other one? Boom, boom, boom. You figure that out. And then you figure out, okay, how much is it going to cost for me to live here in this city, in this area, in this house? And how much is it going to cost to drive this specific car? How much gas am I going to need for this specific car? You would decide that as well. Like, what's it going to cost to maintain this car over a long period of time? And then like, what are my groceries? Like, what do I want to eat? Like, what kind of diet do I want? Okay, I would decide that. Okay, how much is that going to cost? Okay, good. And so what you're doing is you're breaking down every bit of that ideal lifestyle and you're creating a cost, right? And so what you do is you get that cost and then you use that to create your actual specific number, like your goal, like how much do I want to make as an entrepreneur? And at that time was as a sales rep, right? But you can apply this as an entrepreneur. And so you decide, okay, how much I need to be making on top of taxes, on top of interest, on top of all these different things. And you decide, okay, this is what I need to be making in my business to actually live this lifestyle. Right. And this is something that I have done plenty of times. And this is exactly why I know exactly what my number is to achieve the lifestyle that I want. And so this kind of specificity is what is required for you to have absolute clarity on what you actually want and why you want it. Right. And again, that's how specific you want to be to actually get there. Because you can set a goal of, oh, I just want to make 300K a month. It's like, okay, great. Let's say you get to 300K a month and it doesn't end up being what you expected. It's like, oh shit, I actually don't like this. I'm working way longer than what I wanted. I don't like the people I work with. I don't even like the business model I'm in. Like, why am I doing this? And you end up building yourself a jail. You end up building yourself a prison where you might be making decent money, but this isn't the life I want to live. And so the whole point of playing this game, at least for me, is to end up where I want to be. And in order to do that, you actually have to know exactly what you want and why you want it, right? The why is important because it's going to get tough and things are going to happen. And so unless you have a very powerful why, you're not going to be able to go through it, right? Nietzsche once said that every man, what's the quote? I'm probably butchering this, but it's something like, any man with the powerful enough why can bear almost any how. Any man with the why can bear almost anyhow. Something like that, right? But the point is specificity matters. Like, you want to actually break it down to that level of detail and know exactly what it is that you want. Okay? And then even from there, having that level of clarity isn't enough, right? Really, the next step is figuring out what's preventing you from hitting that goal. Like, once you have that number, it's like, okay, what's in the way of you actually getting to that goal? And the thing is you're going to see a lot of different things that are wrong and a lot of different things that you have to fix. But the hard thing and the most important thing is finding the one thing that if you did fix, that if you did solve, is going to make everything else irrelevant and a whole lot easier. Okay, and that is what I like to call the constraint. And that is the second phase here, is you want to actually identify what the constraint in your business is. Okay. And so I actually learned this from Alex Hormozi, and that is his theory of constraints, which basically states that every business has a constraint, which essentially decides how fast you can actually grow, right? If you think about it like a funnel, or let's say the way he puts it is a highway, right? So let's say you have on this end of the spectrum, you have a highway with 6 different lanes. And then over here, it narrows down to three different lanes, right? Somewhere in the middle, there's going to be something called a bottleneck where it goes from 6 to 3 lanes, right? And that is the bottleneck, right? That is the constraint in the business. And basically what that constraint is it determines what goes on the other side of that. What is the output? What is the outflow? What outcomes are you getting within the business? And so there's usually going to be one constraint that is making everything else a lot slower, that is making everything else a lot more difficult. And the problem, after speaking with hundreds, if not thousands of entrepreneurs, just like myself and just like you, is that we all want to be busy. We all want to be busy, right? And we're all working on different things within the business. We're trying to script out a different ad, right? We're trying to optimize this little tweak within the funnel. We're trying to create this email sequence to optimize, to, nurture our leads. Maybe we're trying to find a coach to, hire within our business so that we can deliver on more clients and we can build more value within our existing clientele. And we're working on all these different things, but rarely is it ever that a business or an entrepreneur, I should say, or a CEO is really working on the constraint. And that is exactly why progress feels like it's moving very slow, because it is. Because you're working on the wrong thing. You might be putting in hours. You might be busting your ass. You might be banging your head against the wall like I was, but if you're working on the wrong thing, you're not really going anywhere and it doesn't really matter, right? And so how do you actually find the constraint within your business? How do you actually decide what is the one thing that I should be working on? And the way I like to think about it is, and again, I got this from Alex Hormozi, so credit to him, but the way he thinks about it and the way I think about it is, okay, well, if the business is a function of, if the business is essentially a funnel where at the top of the funnel we have inputs and at the bottom we have outputs, well, in theory, you want to jam as much inputs to get as much outputs as possible, right? So said in a different way, if you're running ads and those ads produce a certain amount of money, let's say those ads produce 20K a month. Well, if I want to get to 300K a month, then all I have to do is, 12x the business, 15x the business. Okay, well, shoot, if I'm spending $10,000 in ads, why don't we just spend $150,000 in ads? That should give me the 300K a month, right? In theory. But the thing is, you go through that exercise and you realize, okay, well, if I spent $150,000 in ads, if I 15x my advertising, what would I need to do that? And you go down that list. It's like, okay, well, shoot, if I did that right now, I can't handle all of those leads because I don't have the salespeople to do that. And so you realize, okay, well, I don't have the salespeople to do that. So that is the constraint. Right. In order for you to scale and get to your goal, the constraint is I don't have the right amount of salespeople to get to 300K a month. If I'm spending 10K on ads and I want to 15x my advertising, I need to fill that in with the right manpower. Right. I need to fill in the gap. I need to fill that in. And then once let's say once you make those hires, now it's like, okay, great. Now let's increase spending. And then you increase spending, and then all of a sudden people start churning. And so it's like, okay, well, if I want to 10x my advertising again, and I have a churn of 20%, let's say, for example, which is obscene, but just as an example, well, the last thing you want to do is increase advertising then, because you're just going to amplify the number of people churn, and that's going to ruin your brand. You're going to have a negative word of mouth working against you. So that's now the constraint. That's the bottleneck in the business. That is what's preventing you from growing, is churn. So you pour all of your attention, all of your resources into that constraint, and you de-bottleneck the business to keep on growing. You see where I'm coming from? And so that is the theory of constraints. And that is how you actually figure out what the constraint is you ask yourself, okay, well, if I want to get to XYZ goal, that's why it's so important to know exactly what your goal is, by the way. That's why I had that as the first step. You ask yourself, okay, well, if I want to get to XYZ goal, what's the biggest thing that's in the way? Like logically speaking, what is preventing me? What is the one thing that is preventing me from getting there? And if I solve that, everything else becomes irrelevant, right? And that's the thing, is that once you do identify that constraint and you do pour all of your resources into that bottleneck, other things are going to break within the business. There's going to be fires happening all over the place. And your team is going to be pulling you in all these different directions, but you are the CEO. You are the chief resource allocator within the business. You have to say, no, We're going to let those fires burn and we're going to focus on this one thing, because if we focus on this one thing, none of those things are going to matter anyways. So this is where focus is going. This is where our attention is going. This is where our money is going. This is where our energy is going. This is where everything is going. And that is how you debottleneck a business. And so first you want to start off by figuring out what that specific milestone, what that specific goal, what that specific number is. It could be just for you. It could be at a business level. And again, the more specific, the better. You identify that number and then you ask yourself, okay, well, if right now I'm doing X, Y, Z to actually get, ABC number, all I need to do is 10x what I'm doing, 10x my inputs to get 10x the outputs, right? But then you identify the constraint and you realize, okay, well, I can't do that because of this, this, and that is the constraint. Okay. And again, I want to drill the point home that if you're working, it doesn't matter how hard you're working, it doesn't matter how many hours you're working. If you're working on the wrong thing, you are wasting resources. You are by definition being a terrible entrepreneur. You're being a terrible CEO. You're being a terrible leader. People probably depend on you, whether it's your family, whether it's your employees, whether it's freelancers, whatever it may be. There's probably people depending on you right now to perform. And if you're focused on the wrong thing, or if you're scattering your focus across multiple different things, then you're doing them and yourself a massive, massive disservice. Okay? And so the fastest way to collapse timelines is to relentlessly focus on the constraint. Because when you fix the bottleneck, when you debottleneck a business, compounding accelerates and every ounce of patience is actually multiplied. Okay? And so once you identify the one thing that is holding you and your business back from achieving your goal, what is the highest point of leverage, then that is when you can actually come in and build a daily structure into your day-to-day to make sure that at even more of a micro level that you're still focused on that highest leverage, that you're still focused on that constraint. Okay. And here's the thing that I learned as a sales rep. So I spent a lot of time within my calendar, right? I spent a lot of time scheduling calls, looking at my calendar, moving things around in my calendar. And I found that my calendar on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis is the most important thing that I can have to make money. And that still applies I would even say it applies even more as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, is that what is in your calendar dictates what is the most important thing that is to you. So essentially what I'm saying is that what you have in your calendar is dictating what your priorities are, right? You're voting for your priorities on what is on your calendar. And throughout the day, you have a certain amount of energy, right? In the morning, you have the most energy. That's when you're the most optimized. That's when you can think the most clearly. And that is when you can get the heaviest work done, right? And so when I was a sales rep, I would always have the first 4 hours of my day to prospect or to take sales calls, essentially just do revenue generating activities, right? I would follow up with leads that I already had sales calls with. I would follow up with the warmest leads. I would call the warmest leads. I would basically just close deals, right? Because that is when I was the freshest. It wasn't until my end of my day that I did all of the admin things, that I tracked all of my data, that I did any kind of learning. I hopped on other calls and I, maybe tried to get better at what I was doing. And so understanding that, number one, your calendar is the most important valuable asset that you have, because time is the most valuable asset that you have, and being able to structure that and organize that appropriately is very important. But also understanding that within one given day, you have a limited amount of energy, right? I get it. It would be amazing if, we can just work like a horse throughout the whole day, never lose any energy, always have always be in the most optimal state to produce, always be the most productive throughout the whole day. But the reality is that as humans, that is just not possible. You can, maximize it, you can optimize it, but we're still going to have diminishing returns on the more work we do throughout the day. And so why that is important is because the way I structure my day is the first 4 hours of the day, I actually spend focusing on the constraint, right? So going back to the previous example, if you are wanting to multiply, if you're wanting to 10x your advertising, but you don't have the closers for it, then the first 4 hours of every single day should be spent on finding the closers to put into your business so that you can actually advertise more. Okay. And then you can do that for the first 4 to 6 hours. You can do that for the first 8 hours. You can do that all day if you want. But the way I like to do it, again, realizing that we have a limited amount of energy, is eventually towards the end of the day, if I did do that the whole day, there would be diminishing returns and the quality of inputs will not be the same as it would be in the morning, right? So in the morning, I focus the first 4 to 6 hours on the constraint of the business. And then towards the later half of the day, I build. I do more technical things. I do more analytical things. I track data. I build systems within the business. I plan out videos. I plan out things within the community. I plan out the core structure within the community. I plan out all these different things. I do more planning. I do more admin. I do more analytical work. I do more building things, more technical, logical side of the brain things. And I do that towards the end of my day. And if I really want to get sexy, and let's say I want to have 3 work blocks, then I just do more of that for the rest of the third block, right? And so usually I have 2 blocks. If I really want to get sexy with it, I have 3. And again, the most important thing is that you're working on the one thing. You're working on the biggest lever within the business within the beginning of your day. And I like to use a tool called Motion AI because it allows me to prioritize different tasks and prioritize different things within my day. And that way I can actually have that system set into my calendar where, hey, if I make a task and I prioritize it, or if I set it as the constraint, I label it as the constraint in the business, then Motion is going to automatically put that in the beginning of my day. And if I can't get it done tomorrow, it's going to schedule it the next day, right? It's just super, super easy, super, super useful. I'm not affiliated with them, but I use Motion AI. And so another thing that I like about that is I track what I do on a day-to-day basis. So every little thing that I do, I track it within Motion AI. And I've built a whole system around this. I can make an entire different video for this if you want. If you guys want to see that video on my system that I have to maximize my time and be the most productive, then let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to make that. That'd be a fun video. But yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but I systematize basically everything in my life, in my business, and in my life. But just because I want to be the most optimal, right? But anyways, I digress. You want to have a system so that what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is not only focused on the constraint, but you're optimizing the energy that you do have. Again, if we go back to what a CEO is you're the chief resource allocator. So one of the main resources and one of the most important resources that you have is your time and your energy, okay? And so those are the 2 things that I do to organize and optimize my time and my energy. And so again, to summarize this third point here, the reason why you want to structure your day and maximize your time and your energy is because if you just end up working on the wrong things, then your entire company is going to stall and you're not actually going to make any progress at all. That's why it's taken me 5 years to get to where I am right now. And to be fair, I still have a lot to achieve and I still have a lot to go. But if I would have learned that a lot sooner, then again, I would be in a totally different place. I'd be way, way more ahead. And if you do want to optimize, and if you do want to accelerate the speed at which you achieve your goals, let me rephrase that. If you do want to accelerate the speed at which you achieve your goal, because we're chasing after one goal, not multiple, then you want to have your calendar serve as a scoreboard as to what you prioritize. And so if we go back to the principle of compounding effects and playing the long-term game, compounding is nothing more than just micro actions repeated over a long enough period of time, right? So if you think of it like dominoes, right? The domino effect, right? So if you have one domino by itself, well, it's not really going to do much. But if you have multiple small little dominoes and you line them up properly, then you can actually knock down one domino that's 50 times bigger, okay? And that's why it's important to take care of those small little actions, because it's the small little things that compound over time. And so just to kind of tie the loop back to where we started this video, if if I were to look back, I think the reason why it's so difficult to be patient is because a lot of times, well, I didn't really know where I was going. And if I did know where I was going, I didn't have it as specific and I wasn't as clear as I am right now. And if I was as clear, I was working on the wrong thing. And if I was working on the right thing, then I was dispersing my energy in unoptimal ways, and I just wasn't moving fast enough. And so if it felt difficult, if it felt like I just wanted more, and I still feel that, by the way, I just want to make that clear. That feeling probably never goes away, but that's the game. That's part of the game. That's a feature, not a bug, as Alex Hormozi likes to say, right? But I think the main point is that patience, again, is hard. It's always going to be hard. But the way you can accelerate results, the way you can actually collapse timelines and get there a lot faster, satisfy yourself a lot faster, is by following those 3 principles of knowing exactly where you want to go and why, being as specific as possible, identifying the constraint that's preventing you from getting there or the constraint within your business, and then just structuring your day around that and do nothing else but that. And if you do that, then I am confident and promising you that you will get to your goals faster. Okay, and obviously there's a lot more to it as well, right? Because to do things for a long enough period of time, you have to actually love what you're doing, right? If you look at people like Michael Jordan, by the way, I don't think Michael Jordan would have become Michael Jordan if he didn't love, like absolutely be obsessed with basketball, right? I think that is a very important prerequisite to playing the long game as well. Is just you have to be obsessed. You have to have a certain level of obsession in this game. You have to love what you do, because if you don't, then it's going to be very, very difficult to stick to it in the long term. And I think, that's something that goes without saying, but just, there's more that goes into this, but those are the 3 things that I learned over the last 5 years to help me collapse my timelines. And again, this comes from a place of genuine frustration, of genuine pain that I wish someone would have told me before. I wish I knew this 5 years ago, and I would have saved myself a lot of unnecessary suffering. Okay. And so if you want help identifying the constraint within your business and building systems to accelerate timelines within that, that's actually exactly what I do with founders within my community. And so there's going to be a link below this video that, directs you to join my community if I do let you in. It's a very private community. It's a very intimate community. I don't want to let just anyone in. And so if you do want to find out what the constraint in your business is, if you want to build systems around that to accelerate results, then you can find that in the description. You can click it or not. I don't really care. I'm probably not going to let you in anyways. And at the time of recording this video, it's free, but it's not going to stay free forever.